When my husband first told me that I could come off of my job and that he could take care of everything, like, what? It was nerve-wracking. It was scary. I was not ready because on one hand, I'm like, yeah, coming off my job, taking care of my family, gonna be at home with the little one. But on the other hand, it's like, I do the budget. Like, I know how much everything costs. I know when everything is due. And you got it? Okay. Yeah, all right, cool. Scary. And we talked about it prior to getting married. We talked about it before we were pregnant and then all through the pregnancy. But when we got pregnant, my husband started really being the only one talking about it. Because I had spent a year of doing the budgets for our house, right? So I knew what comes in, what goes out, how much it really takes to run our house. And so when we started talking about just going down to one income, it kind of made me nervous. Just because I like to have my hands on the reins a little bit. And being in the passenger seat and just having to watch things happen is like, it was like so stressful for me. I knew I wanted to do it, but there was just all this fear involved in it. So one day I'm driving to work and I'm really thinking about it because we've just had a conversation right before I left home, and I knew, okay, I'm gonna have to do this eventually, sooner or later. But when I was driving to work, I felt really, really convicted. Like, it kind of hit me that, one, I could not keep going and stalling this after he'd already told me that he could take care of it. I couldn't keep stalling because as time went on, I was kind of subconsciously sending a message that I didn't really believe him when he said that he could take care of things. I wasn't allowing him to take the reins like he was requesting to do. And then two, I realized that I wasn't trusting God to protect us and to really teach my husband how to lead. There are so many reasons why it's important for me to let Jonathan lead our family and to trust him to do it. Number one, because God set up marriage, right? So he created this whole thing. He created this union. And because he made it, he knows what's best for it. And God put Jonathan as the head of our household. And so if I want things to run smoothly and in the way that God wants them to run, then it's in my best interest to do things the way that he set it up. Two, my husband has to answer for how he led our house. And if I'm constantly getting in the way of him being able to lead, then that's going to be a problem for him later. So I don't need to make his job any harder than what it already is. Leadership in a household is a big deal. And keeping that in mind, who really wants that job? Like, seriously, who wants to answer to God for the way that this whole thing ends up? Honestly, the only thing that people look at me crazy about is if my husband is like not matching, or he looks a little unkept, or he seems a little malnourished. But everything else, that's him. Like, everybody's looking at him. And honestly, I think it's better that way. I should get all of the credit and none of the... No, that's not the way to think. That's not. Number three, it allows God to deal with my husband and to grow him in the areas that he needs it. So when we came into this marriage, I felt like there were so many things that I was great at, and there were things that I was weak at. And naturally, you want to start operating in the places that you're most strong. But really, when I thought about it, when I got married and the person that I chose, I said all the time stuff like, you know, he completes me. Everybody says that, right? He makes me better. And really, when people are saying like somebody completes them, it's not saying like I'm not a full person, but now I am because of them. But it's saying like, no, there are areas that I was weak in, and when we come together, we make a really strong unit. But God wants to make both of you strong, right? So marriage is really a perfecting of yourself. It's an exposure, like exposed, of all the things that you lack so that you can work with someone else to get better. So I realized that every time I decided to take the reins and control a situation, I was preventing my husband from learning a lesson. And how bitter will I be in 20 years if I'm saying like, oh my goodness, it's been 20 years and he still can't do XYZ. Well, maybe it's because I never let him try. I never let God really teach him to do things. And number 4, it allows me to grow closer to God, because I pray so much more. You pray so much more when you realize how little control you have over everything, right? So it has brought me closer to God, because in the process, you realize that it's not you trusting your husband really, it's you trusting God. And because God put us in this role, like, you have to just believe that this is the best thing. Like, this is how it's gonna work in a beautiful way. And you just sit back, trust, and watch God work. And so the last thing to keep in mind when I am deciding to trust my husband to lead my house is that when I think about the way that God works, and I think about how he respects leadership, there are so many examples of God speaking and dealing directly with the leader that he set in place, and then that leader imparts the words of God to the people. So I think about Moses, and when he led the children of Israel out of Egypt and they were going through the wilderness, so often God would pull Moses to the side. He would pull him to the mountain to have time with him and to talk to him. And then Moses would come and relay the message to the people. And those people grew to respect and honor those that sent a message from God. So God placed Jonathan as the head of our house. And I just have to be humble to the fact that sometimes God is leading him in a direction that he might not consult me about. And so when that happens, if I'm kind of fearful, if I'm not really sure, there are times where I will trust but verify, right? So here's a big question. So if I'm not going to be sitting back watching things happen and waiting for the big bang, what do I need to be doing while I'm trying to trust God and trust my husband to lead our family? Number 1, I'm learning to pray for my husband more. It's been incredible since I have decided to just let go and trust my husband to lead our family. I pray so much more for my husband instead of praying about my husband. I'm kind of realizing that we're on the same team. I want him to succeed, because if he succeeds, we succeed. So I have to make sure that I'm praying for him. And I'm praying that God will lead him and to deal with him on the level that he needs. I want him to be great. 2, I'm reminding myself to leave room for mistakes. I can't make my husband feel like every time he makes a bad decision, I'm going to be there to say, I told you so. Or, well, maybe I'm not one to say I told you so, but I will throw shade. Like if he's like, so this happened and then that happened. And, oh, really? Oh, Or I say something like, so what did we learn? You know, like really condescending stuff. And when I do that, it encourages him to not open up and to tell me when things aren't right. And it makes him more nervous when it comes to big decisions. He won't be as quick to just follow what he believes God is leading him to do. He'll second guess. And number 3, believing in my husband is such a big deal. He needs to know that I have full confidence in what he's doing. So what that looks like for us is that when I am following him, I'm really standing right beside him. I'm not hanging behind him like, oh, no, go ahead. No, I'll catch up. Like, don't worry about it. And just being cautious because I'm kind of scared that things won't go right. So sometimes when we're fearful that it won't go the way that it should go, we kind of hang back so that it doesn't blow up in our face. We have enough time to like run the opposite way. Something incredible happens when your spouse really feels like you believe in them. They have this amazing confidence and they're just more sure. The fourth thing that I keep in mind is the beauty of falling overboard and just relaxing and resting in the knowledge that God is the one that's really leading your family. So even if my husband isn't the smartest man in the world, he doesn't have the most brilliant business mind, I know that it's not even about him anyway. Like, God is the one that's really leading our family and protecting us through so many situations. It's not our might, but it's because he's so good and he's so amazing. So when I decided that I'm going to trust my husband more to lead our household, I had to come up with a how, because I've been doing it a certain way for so long and thinking a certain way for so long that I really needed a starting place. It doesn't just happen, right? So let's say there's an extra expense in our house, and I'm going to talk about money just because that's a big thing for a lot of married couples. So yeah, an extra expense comes, and it's small and it's an easy decision to make. I think it's a no-brainer, so I would usually just go ahead, take care of it, just pay it. But now that I'm thinking in the mindset of helping and allowing and trusting my husband to lead, I do it a little bit different. So if the expense comes up and I'm made aware of it first, which I usually am, then I'll call my husband and I'll let him know about the expense. When I let him know about it, I say, hey, this came up and we really need to take care of it. It's gonna cost this much. We have this much. I can go ahead and take care of it. So I was planning on doing it today, but what do you think? So when I present him with the problem, I give him every bit of information that I think he needs in order to make a sound decision. And then usually he comes to the same conclusion as me. And I like doing it that way just because he's able to then have, I guess, a front row seat to the way that I think. And when he can understand the way that I think, then he's more likely to help me to understand the way that he thinks. It changes our conversation. It's really amazing how it does that. When he decides that we're going to make a move in our family that I don't really agree with, the first thing that I need to do before I come to him about it is I need to pray. So I will pray and ask for wisdom and guidance in the matter. And lastly, I'll ask for peace, that whatever we decide to do, that I can still be a cheerleader for my family. So when I pray about the situation, if after prayer I still feel like God is showing me something different, then that's when I come to him and I tell him, hey, babe, I really don't feel great about this decision that we're about to make. And because he cares so much, he's willing to discuss it. I don't think there's ever been a time, there hasn't been a time where I said I didn't really feel great about something that he was like, well, this is what we're gonna do, boo, come aboard or not. No, he listens and we talk through it. I think it's important to say that learning to trust Jonathan to lead our house doesn't mean that I just sit back and watch the show. Definitely not. You still have to be present in your family and present in the decision making, because you're paired with your husband for a reason. You're supposed to be helping him and helping him grow just like he's supposed to be helping you. And that can't happen if you're sitting back and saying, well, I'll just, let it happen. Sometimes we can get in our feelings and be a little, I don't want to say bitter, but I'll just say we get in our feelings about the decisions that they make, especially when we don't agree with it, and we can have the tendency to kind of just be like, okay, well, we'll see. No, I don't have anything to add. No, but we really do. We have something to add and to contribute to the decision. It's like when you're playing tug of war with someone, you both want it, right? So you're pulling, and then you decide, fine, I'm gonna let you have it, and you wait till they're pulling super hard, and then you just let go, and watch them fall. Can't do that in your marriage. You can't have it be a tug of war. First off, I had to realize, like, if we're tugging back and forth, that's already issue number one, because that shouldn't be the case. But it happens sometimes, right? I mean, you have difference of opinion. It's bound to happen eventually. But when I give in, I'm being gracious about it. I'm not just letting go completely and saying, oh, well, I mean, we'll just see. Because like I said before, we're on the same team. We're in the same car. If he crashes, like, my airbag is deploying too. I'm going to be having a busted lip as well. There's no way for me to get out of it and not be attached to it. So it's best for me to make sure that I'm supporting. The truth that I've had to come to is that when I don't trust my husband to lead, I'm really not trusting God to direct us. And I'm not trusting that no matter what, God won't let us fail.